working with your kids, working with them, again, showing them that you care about what they're interested in can go a really long way. And who knows, you might find some things that are really cool that you never would have a million years thought would be of interest, right? But, maybe your child says, well, I'm done with chess, but I'd really like to learn about model rockets or circuits. And so I think it's really, I talk a lot about mindfulness. It's really about being open to the possibilities of what can happen. And again, within parameters that you set as adults. But if we want to raise happy, healthy kids, we need to give them the opportunity to tell us what's going to make them happy and healthy. And if those things aren't risky, why not?
As we begin a new year, a child development specialist at Kansas State University suggests reflecting on the things we do well, because we want to maintain those things while working to improve in other areas. He also says parents should think about their relationship with their children and whether there's room for improvement. On today's Sound Living, helping children to become happy, healthy adults. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles says that children are developing their minds and building themselves into true personhood, and that parents are trying to mentor children into being adults. He believes that starts by being present, responsive, and showing them that you care. Bradford, there's a lot of things that come to mind when we think about starting the new year. Normally it's based around things for ourselves, maybe weight loss or improving our standard, making more money, that sort of thing. But when you're a parent, there are probably some other things that we should keep in mind.
Yeah, as we begin the new year, as we think about things that we want to improve, one of the things that I always try to do is reflect on things that we did well in addition. So you want to maintain those things that you've been doing well. If there are opportunities for improvement, one of the things that I really like to focus on for families with children is encouraging them to explore their children's thoughts, beliefs, desires, feelings. It doesn't have to be, a counseling session or any sort of direct engagement, an inquisition by any stretch. But as we think about the new year, as we think about what we have, our greatest gift is time. And spending high-quality, connected time with our families, in particular our children, are really the ways that we're able to set them up for future success.
We see a lot of milestones for young children, and I'm assuming that's kind of what you're reflecting on, is the fact that they're changing, they're growing, and how can we continue along that same path?
Yeah, and so for every adult, you have your perception of what your child is doing, where they are, what they're thinking. One of the most important things that we know through research in child development is an orientation towards thinking about children's minds, thinking about them as actual beings, as opposed to just children who have needs, right? We all have needs. We need to be fed. We need to sleep. We need to, have a roof over our heads. Those are very important. But we're also developing as minds. Children are building themselves into true personhood. So, essentially what we're doing is trying to mentor children into being adults, right? Happy, healthy adults. You ask any parent what they want for their child, generally they want them to be happy. That's like the number one answer, and healthy is a very close second to that. And so how do we do that? That's kind of what I'm getting at, is how do we do that? Well, the most important thing that we do is we're present. We're present for them. We're responsive to them. And that takes different forms. So for some children, they will evoke that responsiveness from you. They will demand it. We have all experienced children who will be really active in getting the attention that they need. There are also those for whom they will not ever pursue the attention seeking. They also need attention. And so really thinking about your children's thinking about their emotions. And some of the most important advice I could ever give is to prepare yourself to approach any situation with your child, even if it's just having dinner or putting together a puzzle or playing on the floor or whatever it is, taking just a moment, and I don't mean 30 seconds, I don't mean 10 seconds, just a moment to prime yourself for being open to how this is going to go.
So communication comes into play here, I'm assuming. We've got to know, I guess, really what they're thinking, not telepathically, but we need to know where they're going and some of the things that they like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we take different approaches to doing that. But one of the ways that we have figured out through decades of research is that there are some really tried and true ways to extend understanding of each other. The first is really to ask some open-ended questions. So, you can ask me a yes-no question or, something that requires a very short answer. So, for example, parents for generations have asked, how was school today? And the answer you get is,
fine, good.
There you go. There you go. And yes, that's an open-ended question, but we know that you're going to get, for a large subset, particularly preteens and teenagers, something very much like that. So that can be off-putting as an adult very much. But, you can follow those things up with like, okay, so why was it fine and good? What did you do that made it just fine, right, as opposed to great? And nobody likes to be quizzed, right? You can't keep doing that over and over again. I do want to encourage parents to keep trying, though, not one after the other, but every day. Eventually, they'll get the hint, right, that you're actually interested.
You are actually interested,
yes.
Yeah.
And that really is it, Jeff. It's really about demonstrating that you're interested in your children's lives. And we're busy people. Adults are busy people. We are often getting up early, prepping our kids to go out to school, doing our own jobs, coming home, taking care of our families, then having some small time to relax if we're that fortunate, and then we start up and do it all again. And so, it can be really easy to give the impression that we don't, care about anything other than the needs being met. And so, a really important element of that is just continuing those engagement practices, making the most of the time that you're doing other things. So when you're getting lunch packed or everybody's getting their stuff together to go to school or work, those are times where you can, have some banter. You can ask about, okay, what are you going to learn today? If they don't know, fine, tell them. Well, good. You're going to tell me when you come home, right? So giving them an expectation of some interaction as well as, again, just that demonstration that you care about what's going on in their lives. It's extraordinarily rare for a child to come to an adult and say, I want to tell you how my day was, right? But it's not that rare if a child has been asked again and again and again, day after day after day, how was your day, for them to then on that, 165th day, for them to say, actually it was really rough. I had this, and this happen. And that's how you build those bonds. And it provides them with the opportunity to learn about themselves, trust you, and build that resilience that we need throughout our lifespans.
I also think about encouragement and being supportive, so that also comes into play?
Yes, very much so. One of the hallmarks of good parenting is you can dislike the behavior, but you love your child, right? So children are going to do things wrong. They're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We all make mistakes. Well, except for me, of course. I'm kidding.
Maybe once when you were a kid, right?
Maybe once, yeah. But I was mistaken then, so yeah. But we all make mistakes, and the reality is it's how we respond to those, right? So for some children, they might have difficulty in tenacity, in staying with something, right? So that encouragement is really important. Being able to model for them tenacity can help. Some of the things that are very difficult for kids can also be difficult for adults. So it's okay for you to demonstrate that it's difficult as well. Now, some things are just harder for children, and that's the reality, and that's okay too. You can always explain to them that, and by the way, I find myself doing this a lot these days, and that is, you don't just master things on your first go. It's not as if the greatest tennis players in the world just suddenly picked up a racket and were, great. That's not how it happens. It's not as if, Einstein was like, oh yeah, theory of relativity, right on, here we go. Like, that's not how it works. And so it's encouraging more than anything, that tenacity, that willingness to continue to build skills and to work through the challenges. And that, more than anything, parents are required for children to really push through those things. That if we can think about, those kinds of things in the new year that we want to do, providing that support and that encouragement for children will go a long way in helping them meet their potential throughout their lifespans.
Is this an opportunity then to talk with them and ask them, is there something you would like to do different in 2023? Is there something that you would like to take on, something that you want to try?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So these can be really good times to have conversations about everything from their routines to activities. Families have different views about when you can start and stop activities. For some families, if the child shows disinterest, then they don't need to do it anymore. For others, the child needs to show disinterest for an ongoing period of time. And then for others, there's just the full, you've committed to this, you're going to do this. And I don't typically judge on those fronts. Parents know their children themselves, but it is an opportunity to rework, to have a true collaborative discussion. Now, if your 7-year-old's I want to stop playing basketball and I want to take up, underwater basket weaving. Okay, but, there's some things around the resources to do that, right? Or I want to take up equestrian when you're not a person of means. That can be very challenging. So it's a negotiation. Good parenting with children who have agency, who can determine what their likes and dislikes are and articulate them well, is a negotiation. Note, parents, primary caregivers are always the final say. We never want parents to just be pushed around by their children. That's not it. But listening to them and helping understand what their goals are, what things they would like to revise, and if it's feasible and it fits within what you would expect and hope for your child, awesome, do it. There's no reason not to. Some of those things are hard. I know several families who invested large sums of money and time into activities that their children then decided they didn't want to do anymore. And that can be hard. That can be hard to give up. And to say nothing of the parents' dreams of their children doing these things that possibly they did, or at least they saw some potential for. So, it's not just on the child side of things that these transitions can be hard. It can be very hard for adults. But it's a really good chance to look at, okay, what are we doing in our household? What are we doing right? What are the things that we could change? Everything from chores to the order of things that you do, to who gets different privileges and what those are. It's a really good time to just sit down and have a reassessment of where you are and where you want to go. And again, it's not a democracy. Adults are the final arbiters of what goes on in their households. But it doesn't hurt to listen. And if it doesn't cost you anything in terms of your time or money or talent, there's no barrier there. And so, working with your kids, working with them, again, showing them that you care about what they're interested in can go a really long way. And who knows, you might find some things that are really cool that you never would have a million years thought would be of interest, right? But, maybe your child says, well, I'm done with chess, but I'd really like to learn about model rockets or circuits. And so I think it's really, I talk a lot about mindfulness. It's really about being open to the possibilities of what can happen. And again, within parameters that you set as adults. But if we want to raise happy, healthy kids, we need to give them the opportunity to tell us what's going to make them happy and healthy. And if those things aren't risky, why not?
That's K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles. For more information, contact your county or district extension office. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.